Hey, what is up, everybody? What is up, everybody? Happy 4th of July for my friends in the States. I saw a funny meme not too long ago where they said Happy Trader Day from England. I thought that was funny. But nonetheless, welcome everybody to the third installment of the Numbers Show for Stadia. This is a show that is hosted by myself, but more importantly, the man with the numbers, Mr. Jack Deslippe. Jack, how are you doing today, this fine 4th of July?
I'm doing awesome. I'm loving the long weekend and excited to do this show. I always say that this is my favorite hour of the month, and it's definitely true.
Oh, man. So many people. Yeah, we've had a slew of people that were in here early. They were excited. Even on the 4th, it was good to see. Thank you all for the support. We really appreciate it, and we got a great show for you along with some good giveaways. This time we're doing it thrice. We got 3 gift cards. Jack, thanks to Jack that we're giving away today. 3 Google gift cards. So if you guys want to hop in on this Rainbow Six Siege, the deluxe edition now that's still on sale, or some of these other great sales, or the mega sale, or whatever else is out there, or for whatever Google needs that you have, definitely don't move from this channel. We're going to do 3 of them. And right now we're going to tell you how you can register for the first one, which we're going to be doing in a little bit in the show. And then we're going to be doing the other ones later. In order for you all to participate in these raffles, in this first one, what you're going to want to do in the chat, and do it right now, is do exclamation point and the word raffle. That'll register you for this first raffle. Let me see. Let's start the giveaway right now. Hold on. Before y'all do that, you know what? Give me 1 second. Because I got to change the timer on this one. I just thought about that. I'm glad I did. Because then it would have said, too late. Can't do it. MM2K's a liar. All right, so I set that save. Okay, now hit exclamation point raffle. You should see it in the chat. It should be saying, hey, there is a raffle starting right now. So do that. Hit exclamation point raffle. Yes, there you go. All right, let me see if there's any entries. Yep, we see Skull Terrace has got one in there. He's listening. So let's do that. Okay, so do that right now, and get yourselves all registered for that one. For the first gift card, we're going to do the other 2 gift cards later on today. But with no further ado, let me give it to the man of the hour, the man with the stats, Mr. Jack Deslippe. What do you got for today's show?
So we're gonna do this show. I think we've come up with. This is our 3rd episode, and I think we've kind of converged towards a format that works. So we're gonna start off with kind of going over the June numbers for community growth. In the first segment, then we'll go into a segment where we just kind of shout out all the top content creators for the month, and then. 3rd on the agenda is kind of the main topic. So every episode we kind of have a main topic that we hope to answer with some of the numbers around the community. And today's question is a question about whether Linux is a boon or a liability for Stadia. And so we'll kind of talk through that. And then we're going to finish it off with the last segment, which is always the poor journalism of the month.
My favorite segment, right?
There's a bit of a doozy this time. We'll see.
Can't wait to see that one. Absolutely. All right. So, Jack, it is all yours, my good friend. And y'all keep hitting that. Again, exclamation point raffle. It'll register you for the raffle. For those, I see a lot of people coming in right now. Again, you're not going crazy. People, there is a raffle. We're giving away our first gift of $50 gift card. We're giving away soon. In order for you to register for that raffle, exclamation point raffle. All right? Thank you. And now I turn it back over to Jack.
Yeah, we're going to be doing the first raffle about halfway through the show, or
Awesome.
Maybe a little bit before that. So, all right, sounds good. So let's jump into the numbers. So one of the things that I've been highlighting in these first in the first 2 shows has been the kind of growth in the rate that the community forum that people are signing up for the community forum. So that basically continued. There's a little bit of a drop in June, but we still saw over 7,000 new members join the forum.
Oh wow!
And I think, as I mentioned last episode, we kind of dove into this in a little bit of detail, and it appears that the majority of this is legit. So at least kind of half of it is legit, maybe the other half too. But um, and if you remember right, I mentioned last episode that it appeared that maybe some of this was being driven by the fact that the forum is now linked from a lot of the Stadia help pages. Um, but it's hard to know for sure exactly what's driving this increase. But you can see it's still now even sort of at the same level that it peaked in December, which is kind of nice to see.
Absolutely.
In terms of the growth on Twitter uh, for the actual like official platform accounts, um, I'm showing three of them here: NVIDIA, GFN, Amazon Luna, and Google Stadia. And you can see it's kind of a bumpy. There's not. It's hard to get much of a trend here, but the last 2 months have been pretty good. Stadia has um, grown by more than 2,000 subscribers on both of those months, whereas
Wow.
these other platforms have been a little bit down.
Yeah.
Um, and then it just if just to remind you where these sit in an absolute sense, you can see that Stadia is over here with like 260,000. Um, followers on Twitter. GFN has been growing pretty healthily as well, and then
Yeah.
Luna, the kind of newcomer, is down there at the bottom for now. Um, I like to always kind of talk about the growth on Reddit because I feel like the Stadia Reddit community is really a valuable asset for the platform. The growth has been kind of fairly constant over the last like 6 months or so. Um, so in the last month, the Stadia Reddit averaged about 39 new members per day versus like the 35 that they averaged in May.
Hmm.
It's been kind of at that level for the last like 5 or 6 months, as I said. And you can see some of the other platforms here. XCloud got a little bit. You can kind of see there's an uptick here
Oh,
in
okay. Yeah.
XCloud XCloud membership from their news. Um, so I want to dive into this one a little bit more. So in terms of Google Play review count, you can see that things more or less stayed pretty steady as well. Um, Stadia's growth was pretty flat, and you can see some of the other curves up here. Um, I will say that if we zoom out, you can see that Game Pass has had a pretty noticeable jump in the last in the last week or so, um, mainly due to their kind of news, their switching of the blades and kind of going full production.
Yeah.
Um, so one of the things I talked about last month was, plotting the reviews is something, but actually plotting downloads would be more useful. And I did a little extrapolation on last month's episode about what I thought Stadia's actual download numbers were based on these reviews. Um, and I've gone ahead and kind of just done that for all of these different applications. And so I think it turns out that this is basically what all of these other sites are doing. Like I forget the one that posted that Stadia had passed 3 million across iOS and Android not too long ago.
Okay. I got you.
I suspect that they're really using reviews as their main mechanism for doing that. And so what I've done here is I take the ratio of downloads to reviews on
Hmm.
the date each app last had an increase in its like official download count on Google
Okay.
Play. So for example, if you look at Steam Link, last year on June 2nd, it had 5 million downloads. That's the date that it kind of passed that threshold. And so at the time, we know that there was around 2,300. And so I had to do a little bit of extrapolation backwards in time to get this number. But that would lead to a, downloads per review ratio of 217. And you can essentially do that for all of these apps for GFN, which last passed a million like last March, Stadia, which last passed a million last June, and then, the Luna controller app, for example, is more recent, so it last passed the 10,000 milestone in February, for example. And downloads to reviews, you can see the ratio depends a bit on the app. Like,
Hmm.
some apps really push people to review the app and others don't, for example. And there's just other maybe social reasons why users of one app might review versus others.
Exactly.
Um, but we can do that to then turn basically our review numbers into download numbers that agree surprisingly well, I think, with what these other companies are doing.
Oh, okay.
And you can see this is what I then get. So, Game Pass, we're looking at somewhere. Game Pass and Steam Link, we're looking at something close to like 7 million.
Hmm.
GeForce Now might pass the 5 million soon, and then here's Stadia, where I'm projecting maybe about 2.5 million right now. Um, and then Shadow, and then Luna is down, sort of down here.
Gotcha.
Um, at the bottom. And this one that I haven't labeled here is the new Android T, the Stadia Android TV app,
Oh
which
yeah,
passed
yeah. Okay.
50,000 downloads earlier this week. Um, so anyway, this I think this is sort of interesting. I'm going to be keeping tabs on this over time now as kind of like a new official metric, and this appears to agree more or less with what the some of these other agencies are showing. And then, of
Hmm.
course, whenever something does happen, like whenever, for example, GFN does end up passing 5 million on the Play Store, we'll know about it right away because the Play Store listing will officially change, and so that's kind of like a correction point to the projections. Um, so anyway, I think this is it's exciting. I think we're looking at about 2.5 million downloads for Stadia.
Yep.
Maybe a factor of two different from GFN.
Hmm.
Game Pass, I've been a little bit hesitant about even reporting before because it has a much longer history. It didn't actually get the streaming functionality until just recently. So
Absolutely.
like the majority of its growth actually has nothing to do with streaming. It's just
Hmm.
people who registered for Game Pass. I do think that this new uptick here is probably due to streaming
Okay.
because of the news in the last week. But
Gotcha. Yeah. Yep. I know.
um,
I definitely hopped on to try it out. So.
yeah, no, I think that makes sense. Okay, so anyway, that's the download count. That's officially tracked on the site, and we'll be kind of covering that month to month from now on. And then yeah, just in terms of the actual growth, if you can see that Stadia's been growing. My projection would be about 1,600 downloads per day in
Yeah.
June.
Yep.
Um, so not too shabby.
Mm-mm, no.
Okay, so then we'll move into segment two, which is kind of highlighting some of the top growing community members and content creators
Awesome.
um, in the Stadia community. So this is kind of the highlight of some of the biggest Stadia centric channels.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see Sunny pass 20K. I think that'll be. I mean,
Absolutely.
it'll obviously be huge for Sunny, but I also feel like it's a big deal for actually the entire Stadia community
Yes.
to have sort of one of our own pass that milestone. And then you can see some other channels really growing pretty steadily. CGX, the Nerf Report, for
Hmm.
example. Um, I did want to kind of shout out this something new on this show, which is these kind of middle of the pack people. So these are not the top channels, but they're the channels that are kind of like now in the many thousands
Yeah.
and really growing steadily. So the people who are showing a lot of growth and around that number. And so like one that's really impressive here, I think, is Clive's channel.
Absolutely.
You can
Yeah.
see he's steadily been
Yeah.
growing on the order of like 1,000 people a quarter or something like that. And then there are these two awesome Spanish channels that they both recently renamed. I think they're worried about like
Oh yeah.
the
Yeah.
branding the
Yeah.
branding guidelines or
Exactly.
something like that. But um, so Marquise and Ryman on the noob. I don't know. I don't know what that means. um, those are both like Stadia centric Spanish channels that are awesome. You can see Gem growing really steadily here, Stadia, and then here's your channel
Oh, we made it
over
somewhere.
here, growing, growing
Yeah.
really nicely. Um, And then I put Sounds of Stadia and Four Scars here, which are also
Oh,
going really nicely.
look at that. That's not even a curvature for John Scars. Shout out to his channel. Shout out to everyone's channel. But John is had really saw a great spike. What was that in April? Great job.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so if we just look at the total, this should say, let me fix this real quick. This should say June. You can tell I've copied this from the past month. So the top growing channels in June were again this Shadow Wraith channel. If you remember, I was saying that this is the one that he does basically nothing but Destiny 2. So it's kind of like a Destiny 2 specific channel. Then there's a lot of the familiar folks here, Sunny and CGX, Clive. Sorry, this I guess I meant that this was on my to-do list that I forgot to do. So this is the top 10, but I forgot to order them.
Okay. Yeah.
Ordering them. So Color, big shout out to Color, who had grew by 543 people in the last month. So that would put him actually at number 4.
Yeah.
On the top 10. And then I guess I did order it correctly over here. I just forgot to do it over there. This again should say June, so sorry about the laziness. But Color, huge growth, 130% growth of his channel.
Amazing.
In the last month, and he basically does nothing but Red Dead Redemption 2 online. So that's kind of cool. This should again, of course, should say June and not April. You can tell I copied the
It's vacation time, Jack. We forgive you. It's vacation
That's
time.
True. But here again are the top growing folks on Twitter. Not too much of a surprise for the month. I did want to kind of highlight Stadia Source. So I feel like kind of Stadia Source is a good one. That's like a handle for like the kind of like what I would call a standard candle for the rest of the community. Absolutely. Like when Stadia Source goes up, I think it's a good sign that the community in general is kind of growing. And so, it's been really fun to watch them from January 20th all the way to now, where they're kind of closing in on the 3,000 mark.
Absolutely awesome. Before we move on, Jack, real quick, Efren Mexia, new supporter, new member. Thank you very much for the $2 sticker. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. Okay, my apologies, Jack. Go ahead.
Right. Well, I think it's actually time to do the first drawing now.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that was perfect timing. All right. So, again, I'm going to give you 10 seconds. If you haven't hit ! Raffle, do it right now. I'm going to count to 20 because I know there's a lag, but you got 10 seconds to do it.
And remember, You got to be subscribed. So
Yes, that is right.
This will be one of 3, so we're going to do 1 now and then 2 kind of near the end.
Absolutely. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Before we do it, shout out to John Scars for the $2 sticker too. Thank you so much, my good friend. Heath did it just in time. Predator. All right, y'all. Okay, we're closing it off, and we're going to do the first raffle right. We're going to close the entries first. No more fans can enter the giveaway. We close the entries, and now we're going to pick a winner. And the first winner is Barnacle Boy. Barnacle Boy, you are a winner of our first $50 Google Play gift card. Barnacle Boy, hope you're still here. You got to be here to claim your gift as well. So Barnacle Boy, say something in the chat. Let us know that you're still here. Thank you very much. Hopefully we'll hear from y'all. Keep tabs, Jack, to make sure that Barnacle Boy responds. We'll have you get in touch with Jack so you can get your gift. Barnacle Boy is here. All right. Jack, how you
Barnacle Boy, if you could put your Twitter handle into chat, we can reach out to you and get you the Google Play credit.
Right. We're gonna be doing more. So definitely let us know. Jack, do you want to You wanted them. You want to start the other one now? Or you want to wait towards the end of the show?
Yeah,
It's up
well,
to
why
you.
don't you go ahead and open it up, and we'll do it
Okay.
at the end of this segment. We'll do the next drawing, and then we'll
Okay.
talk about the pro journalism of the week while
Oh
we
yeah, yeah.
people
I like
will
that.
sign up for the last one.
I like it that. Okay. All right. Let me go back. So that one is closed. Okay. Now we're going to start the other giveaway, and the other giveaway has us. Hold on. Must be assigned. This is all prizes must be assigned. Okay. Oh, we picked the winner. It's Barnacle Boy. Oh, complete. Okay, I'm sorry. All right. All right.
Yeah, Barnacle Boy, I can do Instagram too. Just put or Reddit or whatever social media handle it is. I just want to make sure that nobody spoofs you and tries to steal your prize.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. All right. So we're going to start the second one and we're going to do it right now. All right. Second giveaway is active. Right now, hit exclamation point, raffle again, and we'll do the second drawing right before we do our favorite segment. Well, this is all great stuff, but you know the community favorite segment, the poor journalism of the month. But go ahead, Jack. You can continue, my good friend.
All right. So our main topic for the day is trying to answer this question about is Linux a boon or a liability for Stadia? And I feel like lots of people have kind of shouted out their opinions here, but
Yeah.
there hasn't been a lot of like quantitative analysis of this question. And so that's what I kind of wanted to do in this section is see what numbers actually tell us about this. And what I've noticed is that, as I said, many people have kind of developed opinions on this. Many people have suggested that, in particular, that Stadia's use of Linux causes games to be kind of significantly harder or less compelling to port, um, and particularly uh, in comparison to Luna and Geforce now. So I wanted to kind of talk about that. And I'll just start off and say that there's certainly some truth to this, but I think it's kind of important to discuss how much and to what level this might actually impact the games that we get on Stadia.
Okay.
And I want to point out that without really quantifying things, it's actually pretty hard to tell because in addition to using Linux, Stadia also provides a proper gaming platform, like a SDK, which is like a set of APIs for developers to integrate
Yep.
for things like your friends, your achievements, your global privacy and security settings, and other some of the cloud features that they provide. And the developers who want to port to Stadia also have to test and support this. So it's kind of hard to tell like how much Linux is responsible versus this. And so what I wanted to kind of point out is that if you look at Stadia versus Luna, for example, in terms of like their architecture, you see that at the end of the day, you have some game running on some local hardware that includes whatever server OS they're using, which is either Linux or Windows in this case. Um, then there's some sort of cloud orchestration layer where they spin up and spin down these different instances when a player comes in. And then there's actually this, what I was talking about before, this platform SDK level, which is sort of the set of APIs, libraries, functions, data sets, etc., that a game developer would need to integrate to keep a consistent experience, like friends, chat, multiplayer, global privacy settings, etc. And that's something that Stadia has in place, but really Luna and GeForce now don't add anything in this area. I mean, if you play an Ubisoft game on Luna, for example, there's nothing Luna about it. You're using Ubisoft's Connect features for everything.
Yep.
And if you play something in the Luna Plus channel, there's just really no platform period. You're just playing some like generic Windows version of the game. So this is what I'm talking about. I mean, it kind of obfuscates how much work it takes to port to Stadia because of the fact that it's an actual platform versus the fact that it's Linux versus Windows. And I think it's important to kind of dive into the numbers and see what they can say because of this. So, as an aside, I just want to talk about gaming on Linux in general. And everybody should know I'm kind of a I'm a Linux nerd. Like 10 years ago, I was running a Linux users group.
Oh wow.
Um,
Okay.
I'm that kind of nerd, I guess. But I do have some experience with kind of gaming on Linux. And of course, I'll throw that out there in case you want to call me biased at the end of this. But I'll say there's generally kind of two paths towards porting a game to Linux right now, and there's sort of the native path where um, you have a game that uses a game engine, and that engine can rely on some graphics API. And in Linux world, that's Vulkan and OpenGL. These are the kind of open source standard for graphics APIs. And then these sort of talk to the GPU kernel driver, which on Linux, there's the NVIDIA, the closed source driver. And when I used to use, when I was like building my own Linux boxes, I would typically use an NVIDIA GPU because I always felt, despite the fact that the driver was closed source, that I thought it always worked really reliably and well.
No.
And then there are Intel and AMD GPUs as well. And I think the reality is that they all work pretty well these days. And their drivers are, I'll say, open source ish for the platform. And I just want to say that there are lots of games that are natively ported to Linux.
Yeah.
If you go to Steam and you just sort by games that are ported to Linux, you'll see that there are about 8,000 at this time, or
Wow.
8,500. And these are just the top search results that came back. And so, Valheim, I know, is a popular game that a lot of people are playing. I guess Civ 6 is a
Yeah.
popular game. And you can see Ark Survival Evolved, one of the games that we're waiting to come to Stadia, is already on Linux. Uh, on the Steam store. You can actually track this over time, how Linux gaming has increased on the Steam store. And so back in 2015, I think they passed the 1,000 mark. And now Linux games on Steam are at 8,500 as of when I looked basically yesterday to put together
Wow.
this slide deck. Um, I think it's important to say that like Steam and Valve have been big advocates of gaming on Linux over the last decade. They've spent a lot of, they've invested a lot and encouraged a lot of developers to port their games to Linux. And you can see it's basically paying off. There's over 8,000 games available now. Okay, yeah, 8522 is the number I came up with yesterday when I was doing this search.
Jeez.
Okay, so then I'm going to talk about path 2, which is native-ish Linux games. And the reason why I call it native-ish is that I don't want you to mistake this as like a game that's been emulated or running in like a virtual machine or something like that. And essentially it has the same basically structure as the left, except we're going to insert here two tools. So a tool called Wine or Proton, which I'll talk about in a minute, and then DXVK and VKD3D. And what you're doing here is essentially you're taking a Windows game and just converting the API, or like on the fly interpreting all the Windows APIs and all the DirectX APIs into something that Linux can understand. But it's not emulated. It's important to know the difference. Like, you're not emulating any of the underlying instructions that the hardware would execute. So let me kind of talk about this. So what is Wine and what is Proton? So Wine actually stands for Wine is not an emulator. In the Linux world, there are a lot of these like self-referencing acronyms. So, Wine stands for Wine is not an emulator, and then you're in an infinite loop if you want to know what the Wine here stands for. So I think what they mean by that is it's not a VM. It's basically a re-implementation of the Windows APIs for Linux, Mac OS, etc., that let you run Windows apps on Linux. And I say natively in quotes because depending on depending on your definition of natively, these are not native, but
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
also not being emulated. So it's not
Yep.
like a VM. And then so Proton is basically Steam or Valve's fork of Wine that was targeted specifically at gaming and enabling this feature for Linux that they call Steam Play.
Hmm.
And this is totally open source as well. It's available at this GitHub link. Um, and it additionally relies on these underlying libraries called DXVK and VKD3D. And you can kind of guess what these are, but they're essentially implementations of the Direct3D and DirectX APIs using Vulkan. So basically, what they do is they translate DirectX functions to Vulkan functions
Okay.
and essentially let you run Windows games via Wine using Linux
Oh
or
wow.
Mac OS or other things. So
Okay.
this Proton project has a website called
Oh.
ProtonDB.com.
Okay.
And they basically list, I guess there are 18,000 games listed, of which they claim that 15,000 games basically
Actually
work
work. Hmm.
via Proton. So these are 18,000 essentially Windows games. 15,000 of them work on Linux via Proton, which is again a huge investment that
Hmm.
um, Steam and Valve have made into Linux gaming. Okay, so just a reminder, these are kind of the two paths I discussed. That's going to
Yep.
come up a little bit later. One of the questions that maybe you're asking is, have any Stadia games actually taken Route 2
Yes. Hmm.
to in terms of porting to Stadia? Um, and it looks like at least one has. So
Oh. Okay.
um, I haven't verified this myself, but people have reported that some of the Metro games on Stadia list this library that I talked about, the DirectX to Vulkan translator,
Oh.
in their credits.
Okay.
And that suggests that they have gone down this route, or at least are using pieces of this route in order to port their games.
Okay.
Um, then this, I want to put out a warning, it's just pure speculation on my part.
Uh-huh.
But one of the things that the Cyberpunk dev said kind of prior to release made me wonder if they were going down this route as well. And one of the questions they were being asked at the time is Stadia responsible for your delay, right? Everybody wanted to blame Stadia for
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
fact that Cyberpunk was being delayed.
Yep.
Um, and they basically answered in the following way. Well, they say that Stadia doesn't really affect the complexity of the issues. What
Hmm.
we're fixing is at a higher level. And then they said Stadia is kind of a PC build,
Hmm.
which, as Adam mentioned at the very beginning, is pretty much ready. Um,
Mm.
so, this could mean a number of things. Like you could call a separate Linux build, like a
Hmm.
native Linux build, a kind of PC build. But you could also, just the language made me suspicious that maybe what they were putting out was that the Stadia version was based on the Windows version running through Wine or Proton or something like that.
Oh. Interesting.
Um,
Interesting.
Again, so I want to make that clear warning. That's pure speculation.
Yeah.
So the Metro games having DXVK in their credits, that's not speculation, but
Yeah. Yeah.
this second one is. But I suspect that even if none of the Stadia games have actually taken Route 2, that this is probably at least on Google's radar
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
way to make porting games easier. And then I'm gonna I'm gonna make maybe a sort of controversial statement here, but I want to make sure that I'm on the record somewhere if this actually comes to pass. Which I think if Google ever does do like a big pivot on Stadia, it's not to just give up. I mean,
Hmm.
nobody's gonna give up on like the first 3 years out of a 20-year growth spurt for cloud gaming,
Yep.
but it will probably be because they have made some sort of big partnership. And I think a partnership with Steam and Valve around a proper gaming service, a proper also
Uh,
using Linux cloud
hmm.
gaming service around Steam could be
Yeah.
one of those reasons if they were to ever make a big pivot.
Yeah.
I could just see this partnership because it kind of makes sense that they've both invested a lot in Linux gaming. Um, but I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just gonna throw that out there if in case it does, as I want to be able to
Exactly.
point back and give myself a pat on the back or something.
Some stuff,
Um,
nonetheless.
okay, so let's one way to kind of look at this is let's look at all these games that Luna is getting as an example, and I sort of think that Luna has 116 games. It's
Hmm.
actually hard to sort of find a list at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Uh, but uh, I went ahead and kind of classified them as being already on Stadia,
Hmm.
being already on Linux natively, or being already on Linux via Proton and classified under the platinum status and gold status, which means they're known to basically work perfectly with Proton, or they're known to basically work nearly perfectly with a few minor issues, kind of
Okay.
is what I interpret the gold as. And so I guess of those 116 games, 36 I believe are already on Stadia. A lot of those are some of the Ubisoft games.
Hmm.
Uh, of the ones that are not already on Stadia, 19 of them already have native Linux ports. Um, and then an additional 32 that don't have native Linux ports are already known to basically run perfectly with Proton.
Hmm.
And then 11 more um, run like kind of nearly perfectly. And
Yeah.
so there were actually a few more that had like silver and bronze ratings, but I decided
Hmm.
to kind of cut it off, cut it
Yeah.
off here. So
Yep.
something like I think 90, 96 or 97 of them are basically already known to run pretty well on Linux
Interesting.
out of the 116 games that um, Luna has. So then the question is, why aren't more of these games already on Stadia? And I don't think anyone could say for sure, but here are some of my thoughts. One is that Google has been curating the games to keep kind of a balanced library where the quality is high. And so
Yeah.
I think
Yep.
we've actually heard from devs in the news who have actually, applied to release games and have not been
Hmm.
accepted yet or just simply not heard back yet.
Yep.
Um, so I think that's part of the story. And then two, I think that it does take time to integrate the Stadia SDK and all those APIs that come with it, as well as test and QA the release.
Right.
Um, where on the other hand, basically Luna has no platform whatsoever.
Hmm.
So in some sense, it makes for a faster release, but the lack of all those platform features also kind of is something that you're trading off in terms of a
Exactly.
experience for gamers.
Yep.
Um, And then three, I think like a properly Stadia platform version of your game kind of requires you to support to support that release, and that's sort of comes with a non-zero cost as well. Um, so I think what I'm going to say is that my initial conclusion here is that Linux is probably not significantly holding Stadia back from getting games in the future. Um, but I haven't talked about the value that it does provide. So we still have this question: does it add value in any way? And I think I'm going to say the answer to that is yes, and that's what I'll go through right now. First, the first way it adds value is in cost, because the cost of a Windows license for cloud is significant.
Okay.
And, it's possible that Microsoft is sort of eating this cost right now in order to try to
Yeah.
like compete in the market. But for example, if you look at a random AWS Windows Server instance, it typically costs about two times the amount of the same hardware running Linux
Mm.
um, in the
Interesting.
cloud, and that's something that Google or Amazon or somebody's going to have to pay that cost eventually,
Yeah.
even if Microsoft is kind of zeroing it out right now.
Hmm. Yeah.
uh, that's significant. I mean, that's basically the difference between a $500 Xbox and a $1,000 Xbox, right? Right, in terms of the cost to actually play. Um, that's not that's definitely a big deal. And so Then there's scalability. I think that, the game servers and potentially even in the future, we're talking about maybe the game front ends could benefit from sort of parallel processing. And this is kind of the area that I work in, but Linux really dominates in the world of the fastest, most scalable computers. If you look at the top 500, I believe the last time I looked, there were 0 Windows systems and
Oh, wow.
500 Linux systems on the list. And then another consideration is the kind of advent of containers in the Linux world. So, what I say is that the deployment of Linux-based applications has gone through a major shift in the last like maybe 3 to 5 or 7 years.
Hmm.
Um, so apps are kind of now packaged along with all of their dependencies, including a lot of what you would think of as the OS, into these self-contained containers that you can deploy on essentially any Linux system running even much newer versions of the Linux kernel, for example. And so I think that this is a fairly good way to future-proof um, the kind of game installations through like future OS security upgrades, etc. And then it's also a way for um, the um, kind of orchestration layers to allow multiple kind of instances to share resources.
Okay.
So it's a way to kind of isolate one application from other applications without having to go through VMs, etc. Um, that would degrade performance significantly. So I think there's a lot of advantages to using Linux in the server.
Hmm.
Um, and then one of the questions I was just going to point out is that to some extent the proof is in the pudding. At the very bottom of the Google Play download chart that I showed earlier, were the
Hmm.
Luna and this new Stadia for Android TV app. Um, you can see that the use of Windows isn't really helping Luna,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, take off massively, where um, in comparison to Stadia and others, for example. Um, and same thing with the interest in Stadia versus Luna Cloud
Hmm.
Gaming.
Yeah.
And at least for me personally, the lack of a platform in Luna is kind of a real bummer. Like, it's hard for me
Yeah.
to want to play a game if I can't like track my achievements over time, for example.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. Some of those basic fundamentals. Can I get your thoughts on something real quick before we go to the next slide,
Sure,
Jack?
yeah.
Clive is in the chat and he's echoing the same sentiments pretty much, but just get your thoughts on this. He says, more importantly, using Linux is future proofing plus no licensing costs when developing specific developer tools, which means Stadias can make those tools open source. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly right. I mean, I was just purely speculating that maybe Microsoft is currently eating their license costs for cloud
Mm-hmm.
gaming,
Yep.
but they're not going to want to do that forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're going to. What Microsoft is probably would like to do is win the cloud gaming wars in terms of their server technology, and then jack up the price.
Exactly. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I think that's sort of what Clive is saying is that, I mean, Linux
Mm-hmm.
is always going to be free. Your tool chain is
Yep.
always going to be free and open.
Yep.
You could share it with you could share it between for example, Valve and Google could make use of each other's technology to a certain extent. So I think Clive is exactly right.
Absolutely. All right. Awesome stuff. Oh, all
Okay,
right.
so let's go. So this was basically my conclusion
Yep.
in this section was I already concluded that I didn't think Linux was really holding things
Mm-hmm.
back. There are multiple ways to port games over to Linux. Um, that we saw that most of Luna's games are already covered in one of those two methods. Um, and then secondly, I think there are good reasons to use Linux.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So I would call it more of a boon than a liability is the
Absolutely. Yeah.
is the conclusion.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
let's go ahead and do the second drawing now.
All right. Let's do the second drawing again. We're going to close out and 20 seconds. So if you haven't hit exclamation point raffle and you haven't got a response back, do it now. Hurry up, because we're about to go to the Poor Journalism of the Year award. I want to just add to all this fantastic stuff that Jack has just displayed for us. This is great stuff, and I'm really interested in learning more about Linux, and that's very interesting stuff as far as those tool sets are concerned. But as far as it being a boon opposed to a liability, I mean, you just got, if you look at some things like cloud gaming being a 2% business, and I know this is stuff that I echo here all the time. If you look at cloud gaming being a 2% business, and you look at some estimates of what PlayStation 5 and Xbox did last week in sales. Now, this is VG charts, so again, you got to hold this with a grain of salt. But VG charts had their global retail movements around anywhere between 130,000 to 220,000, right? The Stadia app, which again, we're talking about cloud gaming, so it's just a download of an app. The Stadia app reached 50,000 for Android TV in 8 days. So for 2% business to get that much engagement, which is about a quarter, anywhere between 60%, a quarter to 60% of the mainstream gaming platforms. I mean, it's early in the game. They're building up their platforms. They're building up their capabilities, but it's looking, because of what we saw from the response from xCloud being on the Xbox Series X servers and the underwhelming response that they got from the mainstream gaming platforms, opposed to everyone who, whether they like the business model, I don't know what that means, Jack, but whether they like the business model or not of Stadia, everybody says that the technology is impressive. You can see long term where making this decision for Linux is going to be the better decision. You know what I mean? So, all right. That said, it's time to do the raffle. Everybody, we are closing the entries right now. We closed the entries. And now it is time to pick our second winner out of 3. And that winner is Francesco 92. Francesco 92, congratulations. You have won the second giveaway for the $50 gift card. Francesco, let us know that you're in the chat. I know it's going to take a few moments. He says, "Here I am." All right, so I can close that out, and then we can pick the winner, Francesco. And then now what we can do, guys and gals, is, again, hurry up, because we're not going to have much time after this one. Hold on, view. We picked it, right? Complete. Okay, we picked the one. Oh, I'm sorry. What the hell? Okay.
And just a quick reminder, Francesco, put one of your social media handles in the chat so I know how to reach out to you.
Absolutely. All right. Now let's do this. Okay, we're okay now. I think we are. Oh, OBS. What are you doing, OBS? All right, we're good now. Okay. So now that we got Francesco out of the squared away, and please follow Jack's instructions, we are now going to start the final giveaway. Hit exclamation point raffle, please. Do that right now. Do that right now. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. And it's exclamation point raffle. The third, now it's up there in the chat. The third giveaway is active. So do that, and we're about to go to our favorite segment, which is the Poor Journalism of the Month. Turn it back over to Jack.
I added this little clip art to it. All right, this it's surprisingly, or I guess what I should say is it's surprising how competitive this competition is every single month. I'm always thinking about it a few days before this show and just looking at all of these articles. And it's a tough decision to pick just one who represents poor journalism of the month. But I think we've got a clear winner this time. And that's this article by Droid Life that decided to title the page for the article as AT&T has a lame free Stadia offer.
Oh, God.
So, I mean, First of all, if that's not like clickbait, I don't know what is. I mean, they do go into the article. I mean, they do sort of explain what they particularly think is lame about it. Um, and they say like for those on selected unlimited data plans and who are adding or upgrading 5G phone. So that's the criteria to get the offer.
Yeah.
And so they basically go and say for a limited Stadia trial, that is a really lame requirement in my view. Um, but they they decided to label the entire offer or the article and the entire offer as lame because of that. But I think there's something that's even more wrong in the body of the article, which is without basically presenting any evidence at all, and I think in contradiction to the data that we've shown here month after month, they go ahead and kind of just taunt the announcement in the body of the article by saying, while some, I'm trying to put on the snarky voice that I hear like in the author's voice. They're like, well, some may argue that there's a decrease in popularity. AT&T says that with the increasing popularity of cloud gaming, our high-speed 5G and fiber networks are becoming more important than ever. So they're basically saying like, we think there's actually a decrease in the popularity of not just Stadia, but apparently all of cloud gaming.
Oh, they don't tune into this show, Jack.
Yeah, I didn't actually look at who the author was. But you know, this is obviously not true. It's obviously not going to be a trend over the next 5 or 10 years. And it was just like level of like snarkiness and like almost hatred that some people seem to have for this technology is just surprising. So congratulations to this article for winning Poor Journalism of the Month for June. And I'll basically leave things there. So that was the end of our fourth content, or the fourth segment, I should say. And I think we're almost ready to draw our last winner.
We're ready to draw. Hey, Monkey Boy, you keep putting it in with the space. Don't do that. But just put in exclamation point raffle. I'm gonna give you a few seconds to do that. You put in exclamation point space raffle. So I want you to get, because I don't see your ticket in here because you keep doing that. And while we're waiting for everybody to get their final raffles in, I just want to say that it's bewildering, Jack, that there was somebody on Twitter that responded to another pundit's misinformation in regards to, I think, gaming in general. And the question looms, and why we do this segment is, journalism used to mean that the creme de la creme of research, due diligence, quality control as far as data and information was concerned, that's where the creme de la creme of that process was. And it's no longer about that. It's all about fancying up my words, fancying up my emotions to get you to believe what I feel, not to disseminate facts. Anybody, regardless of what you think about cloud gaming, when you type in projections from cloud gaming, there were billions and billions. I mean, I'm over exaggerating, but there were so many results that show analyst projections, scales, things that we're showing here every month that show the opposite of that. What would make you sit behind your keyboard or going off your GIF here, your typewriter? What would make you sit behind your writing instrument and put out so much babble? I don't know, Jack, do you have I know I ask you this every month. I'm trying to get to the bottom of this. Why would someone put something like this out here when there's so much information to the contrary?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not in the trenches as like a blogger or journalist myself who's like got a deadline to deliver so many clicks on on an article or something like that. Yeah. But all I can say is that it's sort of disappointing. There are so many ways you could write a story about this this AT&T Stadia deal. Yep. And this was possibly the most negative way that you could spin it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. I think it's time to shut it all off. I mean, our good friend Four Scores Gaming, who does the complete opposite. He's the complete antithesis of our poor journalism of the month. He does some great content for Best Buy, the gaming blog. Definitely check him out. Check out this channel altogether. Great stuff. With that being said, we're ready to select our last winner. Francesco says, I wrote you on Twitter, Jack, on Stadia Dosage. And Jack, okay, as long as you contacted Jack on Twitter, I don't know if it was needed, but I just do it for sure. Yeah, we're just trying to confirm who
good.
You are so you don't get railroaded. You know, some of my sleazy cousins coming in there and trying to act like they're you and get your prize, Francesco. All right. We're going to close the entries. Boom! They're closed. Sorry. And now we're going to pick a winner. This is our final winner for $50 Google Play or Google gift card. And today's prize 3 winner is Cloudbusters. You are a winner of giveaway number 3, Cloudbusters. Cloudbusters, please confirm that you're still here.
Ooh.
All right. This was some great stuff. And I love skimming over the slides, but it's so informative, Jack, to have you go over stuff like this, and it's great that you have the background that you do, because there's a lot of smoke and mirrors out there about this platform, and it's shows like these with your efforts that help clear that smoke. So we really appreciate it, and that's why the show is so successful here. Cloudbusters, please respond. Let us know that you're here. Oh, yep, still here. But thank you so much, Jack, for all that you do for this show.
All right, so again, Cloudbusters, put in like one of your social media handles, so I just know who to reach out to, or if you reach out to me, I know that it's the legit person who won.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this episode was particularly fun because I've been a Linux kind of nerd for a long time. I'm still waiting for the day that the Linux desktop kind of takes over, but
yeah.
I guess in some sense you could say it has, if you count Android and other things these days.
Yeah, I guess you can. Yeah. I mean, and it's crazy to see the migration. I know we don't want to go too far in the weeds, but it's crazy to see the forthcoming migration of Windows 11 and the Android App Store with Amazon. You know what I mean? So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Windows actually ships a Linux shell now, like a bona fide Linux shell now too, which is sort of interesting how times have changed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Steve Ballmer would be, the little bit of hair follicles he had left would just definitely singe out back in those days. But again, Satya Nadella is a cloud guy. He's a technologies guy. At that level, we've seen Microsoft more embrace open source, things of that nature. So it's interesting to see where it all lands. But like Victor Del Maestro says in the chat, great job, Jack. Great job.
Thank you to everybody for listening, for tuning in. Congratulations to the folks who won.
Absolutely. All right. And with all that said, thank you all so much for your support. We appreciate it. One last thing that we need to do that I meant to do at the beginning of the show, Jack, but we got to do it right now. Let me see here if I can go back. There we go.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Do a little something. Uh-oh. Hold on. There we go. Do a little something like this. Make sure I did it right. Can I see the screen? Yes. No, I didn't do it. What the heck happened? There it goes. All right, guys. What you see on your screen is the Twitter page for the Summer Community Championship. This is the official Twitter page of the Summer Community Championships, as it reads. And with the Summer Community Championship, well, Jack, you're the creator of all this. We have all this. We have this great event that is kicking off next week, all because of you. Can you tell the people what it is and how they can participate?
Yeah, so thanks for not forgetting to do this. I was about to forget, but this I'm super excited about this event. We're myself, a few other organizers, including MM2K, Live, Stadia Hunters, Vivi from Twitch and Twitter and other places. And of course, Force Guards
Hmm.
are organizing a basically a month-long Stadia tournament, but I almost consider it like a festival because it's like we're gonna have basically a competition for one game each week for 4 weeks, and then we're gonna have a finals at the end. And the idea for this I think just came about because it's been kind of a crappy year or like year and a half for a
Yeah.
lot of people, right? I mean, the pandemic has really kind of upset a lot of people's lives, and I and others, I think we just felt pretty lucky about how we've been able to kind of transgress through the pandemic and how the Stadia community really was a big part of that for me. I mean, it helped me kind of connect with my kid. It helped me meet a bunch of new friends online. And we just kind of want to celebrate the platform and even more so the community by hosting this event. There are some pretty serious cash prizes, so I think
Yes.
we're committed to up to $2,300 of cash
Woo.
prizes. The grand prize winner will get individually $1,000. So,
Mm.
hoping that's compelling to have people join. But even if you don't care about the money, just join for the fun of it because it's going to be
Absolutely.
a cool way to kind of celebrate Stadia over the course of the summer.
All right. And you guys can go to the Twitter page, which is at the Summer CC. At matter of fact, let me put it in the chat. It's at the Summer CC. Says go to at the Summer CC on Twitter to learn how to register. All right, and like Jack said, man, I mean, there's a lot of greenbacks being given out there, but even beyond that, it's just a camaraderie that that we want to embrace and create an opportunity for everyone to enjoy, and beyond the money, just having fun playing some great games. You know what I mean? Definitely check it out. You can click on this link. It'll take you to stadiainindiavpn.com. Shout out to them where you can register for this event. With that said, is there anything else, Jack, before we close out?
No, just thank you everybody for joining us and listening and subscribing to the channel.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. With that said, thank you, everybody. We appreciate you as always and have a wonderful, wonderful gaming day. Happy 4th. Peace.
All right.